Hello and welcome to the 2019 CMO virtual event, Agile-First Commerce, Speed and Flexibility in the Age of Lofty Customer Expectations. My name is Julia Boyle with Argyle Executive Forum, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have a few administrative details to share with you, and then I will turn things over to our esteemed speakers. First, we would like to thank SAP for their partnership with today's event. They've been a wonderful thought leadership partner to Argyle and are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. So thank you again to SAP. We appreciate you joining us today. We welcome you to stay connected during today's event. For those of you who are active tweeters, please use the hashtag ArgyleCMO. You can also follow us on Twitter at Argyle Exec Forum and be sure to join our LinkedIn group, CMO Forum. I also want to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback we've received over the years from our members. Argyle is very proud and protective of this policy as it reflects our commitment to ensure the neutrality and overall value of the content presented at our events. We've worked closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the session today, and we appreciate your members' support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, please submit any and all questions that come up during today's event into the Q&A section of the interface. Following the panel discussion, we have set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on these questions. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Charles Nichols, SVP at SAP. We're pleased to have Charles with us to deliver opening remarks. Welcome, Charles. Over to you.
Well, brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Emily. And I do encourage everybody to submit questions. The questions are the fun bit, really. This is where it gets interactive. And we have an erudite panel here who are champing at the bit to answer your questions. So please do put those in the question box. That'd be fantastic. In terms of thinking about Agile-First Commerce in the very long title, in the age of lofty expectations, lofty, wow, that's a word, isn't it? There's no doubt that customer expectations are sky high, and of course, you know, people are looking for this sort of wonderful, seamless, cross-channel experience that, you know, differentiates brands and makes customer journeys incredibly easy and wonderful. But of course, there are some challenges in delivering that. And the way that I think about this really is that there are three sort of big mega themes today really impacting commerce. I mean, the first and most obvious one, I suppose, is mobile. For example, if you look at the Black Friday traffic, 39% of Black Friday sales, according to Adobe, were on mobile devices. Comscore says that's up, 50% year on year. I mean, that's a massive difference, right? And of course, as brands and retailers and businesses, we have to be where our customers choose to be. And if they choose mobile devices, and that's certainly the device du jour at the moment, then we have to reflect that. But many experiences are not optimized for small screens, and you actually see when you start looking at the numbers from Black Friday and Cyber Monday that there's a sort of a disconnect between the very largest companies who've got heavily mobile optimized sites, really hoovering up a lot of mobile traffic and mobile conversions at a rate, 66% higher conversion rate, effectively those who've optimized compared with those who haven't. So it's something that we need to bear in mind, and it's kind of symptomatic, really, of this experience that customers want today, irrespective of B2B or B2C. We're all consumers, whether we're buying from businesses or whether we're buying as consumers ourselves. But it's symptomatic of this experience, this expectation of experience that we have. The second challenge, of course, is that customers choose channels. We as brands don't choose the channels. When the customers choose the channels, and of course the number of channels that customers are expecting to buy from is going up. And over time, as we look at that going forward, we can probably expect that to continue. We really need to be where our customers choose to be. And if they choose to be on a particular device or through a particular kiosk or through a particular channel partner or whatever else it is, then we need to provide as slick and smooth an experience as we possibly can, where they choose, because ultimately, experience is the key, it's the magic, it's what makes these things easy and fast, and ultimately those things differentiate us. And there's lots of stats which shows that the case. So in order to deliver all of that, which sounds, difficult enough, right, you fundamentally have a challenge, which is, we need to deliver experiences which are slick and smooth and easy across channels. And I talk about that maybe as a tap, tap, buy type of experience. That's, I think, where those lofty expectations are set, which is I should just be able to tap a few buttons and magic happens behind the scenes, and then, immediately, I'm satisfied as a customer. Of course, it's hard to do that on mobile, online, in-store, cross-channel, and of course then multiplied by end devices, where you want to have an optimized experience across a large number of potential devices. So these things present significant challenges, and therefore, how do we begin to think about that? Well, if customers are choosing, then we need to fundamentally think about the way that we deliver shopping type experiences, whether B2B or B2C, in a different way. We can't think about them in rigid, which is, I'm going to put up my store and you're going to come to my store, right? We need to think about this very differently, which is, we need to be where the customer wants to be, and that fundamentally means that we need to build agility in so that we can enable them to shop on different devices, different channels, and do that in a very nice and easy, seamless way. Because fundamentally, if we look forward, what we're seeing is really that commerce is heading towards an everywhere. Commerce is everywhere. We need shoppable content. We need shoppable devices. We can even shop on our home speakers at home, although I have to say that is a not there yet kind of experience. I recently was cooking, and sometimes when I'm cooking I'm thinking about other things, and I thought, okay, I need some deodorant, and I said to Alexa, could you buy me some deodorant? And after about 3 or 4 goes, I cut my finger in the process of trying to talk to Alexa, but that's another matter. And Alexa managed to finally get it right. So there are some things which are definitely still edge cases. We're a long way from where we need to be. But if we look at the trend overall with Internet of Things and all these sorts of types of different connection points, then we need to basically build some kind of agility into what we're doing. And that is both technologically and also organizationally. And both of those two things kind of work hand in hand. And we're definitely going to come back and talk about the organizational stuff more in the panel discussion. Our friends at Gartner, the industry analysts, basically describe different kinds of systems, systems of record and systems of innovation, and recognize perhaps that we need both. We need systems that can absolutely process transactions and do it reliably, and do it in a way that's compliant to all policies, and GDPR compliant and GAP compliant and all those other things. And at the same time, we also need systems of innovation. We need to be able to evolve things rapidly and experiment and try out new ideas. And this is sort of really where the rubber hits the road in what often gets called sort of digital strategy or digital transformation. Because in many cases, we're sort of reinventing our businesses in one form or another with, different commercial models. Perhaps we're turning products into services, or perhaps we're selling through different channels, or maybe if you're a consumer products company, you're selling direct to a consumer for the first time, or all those sorts of things basically mean that there's a lot of change and dynamism going on. And in many cases, those agile experiments need to hopefully succeed fast, but if not, fail fast. We need to be able to test and iterate and learn and evolve, and that's absolutely the way to make these things work. And we can play that into commerce and what that looks like, the sort of systems of record and systems of agility. And you can think about that as the front end and the back end, or the experience layer and the operational layer. And the experience layer absolutely needs to evolve rapidly, in a much more rapid way, perhaps, than the back end. And traditionally, the way that this has worked in many systems, sort of more monolithic systems, are that those two things are very tightly connected. And tightly connected is great. It sort of gives you lots of benefits, but actually maybe a loosely coupled approach gives us the ability to connect in through an API layer, and having those things able to evolve at different speeds. So if you like a two-speed kind of a concept rather than a one-speed concept, is super attractive. Digital experiences, maybe they change daily, maybe not daily, but we need to have the ability to go really quickly. Is very different from something which is, on the operational side, maybe evolving, much more slowly. Maybe we'd say change quarterly, or maybe it's half yearly or something of that nature. Depending upon where you are with your systems, these things are designed to change slow. We want them to change slow. We want them to be stable and secure and scalable and all of those sorts of things as well. But we want to be able to connect, new, agile, fresh, different experiences, connecting in different kinds of devices and building sort of that flexibility on the front end. So decoupling those is one of the key things. And where you do that, that's sometimes called headless commerce, which is a slightly weird term. It sounds a little bit sort of a bit gruesome, but in essence, if you've got the head at the top, the experience layer, and then you've got the transactional back end, sometimes loosely coupling those is seen as being very attractive. And that's done through an application programming interface or an open layer which allows you to connect anything in, which is highly attractive. So technically, we can build flexibility into our systems by using different kinds of approaches and different kinds of architecture, which allows us to then respond to those customer demands in different ways. We need to be able to rethink the way that we interface with customers. Mobile is today the device absolutely of today, but there will be other ones for sure evolving. For example, in car shopping or wherever else it is, you name it, we need to be where our customers are. Or if you're in B2B, increasingly we see a rapid shift in B2B from a desktop type of metaphor very much to more of a tablet or a mobile metaphor. In particular, if you're doing B2B2C, where you're selling through a distributed channel to a installer network or something of that nature, then very much the installer is going to be on a mobile device. And many of those same kind of concepts of being able to or desire to deliver a great experience, personalized at scale, work in exactly the same way in B2B. Maybe not quite as the requirements aren't quite as high today, but ultimately, it's heading very much in the same direction. And given that, customers choose those channels, then architectures fundamentally need to change, provide agility, flexibility. We see cloud there being important. We think about embedded commerce, so commerce embedded in content. Wherever the customer chooses to interact with content, they should be able to buy. We shouldn't force them in any way to reshop, which is a very common thing today. Reshopping is basically where you start on one device or one channel and then realize it's too hard on the small screen, and actually what you're going to do is you're going to bail from that, and then we force them to then get on the phone and call a call center, or we get them get online on a desktop, and they start all over again. They start their shopping journey again, explaining what they're doing, or clicking in where they want to go, or going to the store, and we force them to reshop. And whenever we force customers to reshop, by forcing that, change of channel, then we lose sales, right? There's no doubt about that at all. It's more true in B2C than it is in B2B, but there is a strong element of impulse, emotional buying that gets involved here. You can go into the inner depths of the brain, and you figure out that, in fact, it's the oldest part of the brain which controls impulses and the will to succeed and compete and all those sorts of things. And therefore, we're tapping into those deep-seated impulses. As soon as we force somebody to stop and change channels, then the rational part of the brain comes in, which logically can then start saying, well, maybe I should shop around for this, or maybe I really don't need this after all. So that's why you see the drop-off. So making shopping easy and slick and seamless and relevant to the individual, great personalization should feel just like great service. And doing that on the channel that the customer chooses to interact with us first is, one of those key goals. And in order to deliver that in a multi-channel, multi-device kind of world, we need to fundamentally architect flexibility into not only our processes, but also our technology and the way that we work. So with that, let me throw it back to Emily. Emily, do you want to open up the panel discussion?
Hi, yes, thank you. So as a reminder to all of our listeners, please submit any questions you have in the Q&A interface And following the panel discussion, we have set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on these questions. We'll now kick off our panel discussion titled Agility in the Age of Lofty Customer Expectations. Today's panel will also be moderated by Charles. The floor is yours.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Emily. So, whilst you're getting your questions in the question panel, and we'd love you to do that and give us some more, I've got some warm-up questions for the panel. I'm not sure the panel are ready, but here we go, panel. I hope you are. So, question number one. So, how does your organization architect agility into customer experience, right? And I'm going to go first to, well, ladies first, shall we? So, let's go to Colleen first. So, Colleen, I understand, you think about an agility mindset really at Albertson. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that? How do you organize? How do you organizationally architect agility into your customer experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. We at Albertsons, have a motto really to meet the customer where they shop. A very strong customer-first mindset. And on one hand, that's easy for us who work, backstage because we all buy groceries. But our base is really everyone in the U.S., and we have to cater to those disparate segments because people shop differently. Some people definitely want to go into the store and want their weekly ad, flyers in their hands. And then there's very digital people, the people want to shop e-commerce, drive up and go, any of those different services. So by default, we have that agility in as we pivot to serve the customer needs and to integrate for that smooth customer experience. And Charles, I think, as you were saying, customers want choice. Sometimes they want choice, and sometimes it's really seriously, they want their choice. They don't care if there's all these other things that we provide. They want to be able to shop their way. So I think as we architect for agility, it's really in that mindset of thinking, how do we serve the customer?
Okay, great. Corey, do you want to go next?
Yeah, happy to. Hello, everyone. Corey Case with Cardinal Health. I think for us at Cardinal, at least in the medical side of our business, where me and my team reside, it is a journey for us, and we've initiated that journey when you think about truly being agile. And agile is not just obviously the IT side of the house. My business team, we're right there with our IT counterparts, both from a learning as well as, of course, the execution side of things. And a lot of what you shared, Charles, particularly around and I might be using my words, not yours, but the convergence of the B2B, B2C mindset definitely resonates. And so with that, we have to be more agile. The days of large, clunky quarterly releases are and need to be behind us, even though it's a B2B, somewhat transactional relationship. So we're on that journey. It's not been flawless by any means, but we've been able to be more agile, have more frequent releases, but still a long way to go for us as an organization.
Well, absolutely, and the B2B, B2C convergence is always a fascinating topic in its own right. I'm just seeing what Amazon is doing in B2B commerce, where effectively it's applying very much the same kind of formula. But to B2B, it trains all of our buyers, the B2B buyers, to basically expect the same kind of experience. Okay, so question number 2. Did you choose headless commerce experiences? And if so, what was your thought process and how's it worked out for you? So let me go first to Jeff at McKesson.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Hi, everybody. Jeff Feit. I lead our portfolio and product management team at McKesson. Our current core commerce platform is not headless, although a number of our other customer-facing web properties are closer to the kind of model that Charles presented earlier. But we're already thinking about the next generation, both of our core commerce platforms as well as other content management platforms across the business. And certainly we're evaluating the headless model as a part of that kind of next generation of our digital experiences, because we certainly agree that decoupling some of the back-end operational components from the user experience, customer experience, really are imperative to ensure that we can be more agile and responsive to customer needs. But candidly, we're in varying degrees of success in that process, depending on which one of our products you look at.
Well, I think, Jeff, to be honest, most people are. I mean, that's the reality of big companies where we are. We're all in transition in one form or another, and you're not alone with that. But this desire to try and build flexibility in is really important. Joel, do you want to touch on this as well?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So definitely at the current stop, and certainly in my past, we've looked at headless, actually implemented it in prior lives, and currently what we're trying to do is figure out, is a monolith or a headless the way to go? And I think as we evaluate that, and as sort of as Jeff mentioned, the challenges of being able to pull it off, and I think headless is awesome right up until you realize you have difficulty integrating with all the systems that you need to integrate with, right? If you look at a full commerce experience, which isn't just e-commerce, but how it goes into supply chain and financial systems, etc. And I think as we look at what we're doing, it's how we rationalize the integration points. And that's, to me, the biggest challenge. And we definitely, there's no question the flexibility is awesome and it's powerful and it allows you to do everything you need to do. I think you always need to weigh it against, can we really pull it off? And can we pull it off in a way that's not going to be detrimental to other aspects of the business? But definitely something we're looking into. It's absolutely where I think the world is evolving. It's a customer-first world, and you have to be there with them.
Yeah, I mean, you raise really great points, Joel, because integration is always where the rubber hits the road with these things, isn't it? But it takes real discipline as well to begin to build in this concept of reuse, right? I mean, it's been an elusive goal, for anybody in the software side for a long time. Can we have, initially sort of object-oriented programming, reuse objects, but now we're talking about reusable services. And the idea of being able to isolate the API layer from the back-end connectivity so that it can be leveraged in a more flexible way is kind of really intriguing. And I would agree with you. It's almost certainly a journey, rather than the destination. So let's move on. But great thoughts on that one. So what steps does your organization take to future-proof, commerce capabilities? Let's switch maybe and think a little bit about organizations. Maybe you don't want to go there, but Colleen, where would you like to go on this one? How do you future-proof commerce at Albertsons?
I do think you have to think of the whole organization when you future-proof. We, especially in the groups that I'm in and the groups that I work with, really nurture that culture of curiosity. Thinking about what it is that we want to do next, what's new, having the test and learn so that we have the data behind what we implement. Myself and our sister teams in loyalty, e-commerce, own brands, innovation, we have a tremendous amount of autonomy as we develop those strategies and those proof of concepts. We definitely have a robust system that does our digital operations and has that communication with the customers, but we also are able to pull out test and learn groups, do that type of test and target experience, and with those proof of concepts, prove out what we want to see very quickly. And then once we know what that is, then we can scale that out. So it's the scale out part, relies on how the tech, is built underneath it. Component-based or modular, having things scalable, cloud-based, that really helps. And probably one of our biggest assets is that we have a tremendous integrated on-site technical team. So they can help us do a lot of native code if we want to move fast and try to get something in before an entire tech solution is built. But in really how to future-proof, I think innovation is how you future-proof or create that future so that you're making things happen, not trying to react to things that happen.
Well, test and learn is a fascinating concept. It really breeds kind of agility thinking. I mean, some of the most fascinating experience I've done have been where we've been running some kind of a marketing experiment or new kind of a gig that we're trying out, and we brought in a control group, which is what happens when you do nothing. And it's fascinating to see how many seemingly brilliant marketing ideas can actually damage sales. And it's something that, most CMOs kind of do a bit of a double take, which is, really? No, surely. Marketing always works. There's always some lift, surely, right? But it's fascinating to see how you can create a negative lift if you don't get it wrong. So test and learn, I totally agree with as being super important. Corey, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, absolutely. I know customer centricity has been a theme already early in the discussion, and I think for us, we just did launch a new site, as I have not shared that, but last March, I believe, so we're about 18 months in, and from the very beginning, customer centricity simply was our most important guiding principle, including when we went to leadership and had many months of back and forth getting the initial funding, painting that picture that it is not a set it and forget it. It will be a journey, post launch. And we certainly recognize, our customer today often sits in the basement of a hospital without windows, searching, shopping, trying to do basic self-service capabilities. But that's not the future. The expectations have really accelerated over the last 3 to 4 years with respect to functionality, capabilities, user experience. So for us, it's really aiming to meet those expectations, not now, but what does that future roadmap look like, whether it's functionality or user experience. For example, right now we're going through another round of ethnographic customer visits and research. It's critically important to keep the finger on the pulse. That combined with also capabilities needed to enable the business is really at a high level and simple level, the ingredients that will define that future roadmap and hopefully future-proof those capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, potential huge change in your business from from those poor people in the basement, where hopefully they're going to get out a bit more and maybe even have, a touchscreen tablet type experience. But that will transform things quite dramatically from being almost going from the back office effectively in your buyers or in your buyers world, almost to the front office. It would be really interesting to see. Okay, so next question. Actually, before we do, just a quick reminder. Please do jump in with fascinating questions, or even not fascinating. Any old question will do. We'll take them all. We're not picky. Please do jump in with questions, and we'd love to get those. So next question for the panel. How have you adapted to the migration of consumers onto mobile devices? Is your commerce fully mobile first? Well, there's a big one. So I'll tell you what, let's start with a B2C kind of example. Colleen, do you want to go first? And then I'm going to throw it open to the panel. So panel, get ready to jump in.
All right. Yeah. So we are B2C, and we place a high priority on mobile. Albertsons, Safeway, we're the second largest grocer in the U.S., in 2,300 stores or so. And so we have people all over the place. Once mobile started coming out, we put a high priority there because with a digital product, we want it to be mobile first. The things that we built into it is, responsiveness, ADA compliant. We're actually doing away with our mobile web. It's still there for a few folks who want to use it, and it exists and it's good, but the apps are the ones that really drive for us. And we have 3 main ones with Just For You, the loyalty one, for commerce, e-commerce, pharmacy, and then I was thinking about, Charles, your click buy. We're testing out certain things like a one-step fuel, where with that app you can just push a button and get gas at our stations, without having to go through credit card and push through everything else. But we definitely see mobile as a great way to meet customers where they shop. And, we've had, you've probably seen them, the types of ads where, the soccer family's out there and you're seeing somebody add digital offers, to their shopping list, while they're waiting for the game to start. Or they're placing a grocery delivery order, while they're waiting in line, at an amusement park. So it's really a nice way to serve customers. And I'd say we're probably, depending on whichever service, we're about 50-50, 40-60. We definitely have a high use in our mobile devices.
Okay, I bet it's different in B2B. Who on the B2B side wants to jump in here?
Sure, I'll be happy to. I mean, we're definitely, as we're launching commerce here at ADP, to allow and meet the customer in their digital realms and where they want to be. I think we have definitely attempted to take a more mobile first mindset, from whether it is client and customer onboarding and acquisition to where we are actually able in that vein to get away more with a mobile web experience that's completely responsive. And it's after they've engaged and are beginning running and enjoying our services that we could introduce the app. So I think the point of the matter is I think in this day and age, mobile, you look at your traffic numbers and probably better than 50%, probably pushing as much as 70% is looking at it on mobile. You have to be there, right? The customer is there, the prospect, however you want to name them, is there. So what we do is we try thinking all the way down to how we're acquiring a customer via, whether it's a Facebook or Instagram ad, that's going to be done more likely than not in mobile. 90% of people are looking at mobile and emails are open on mobile. So you just keep the paradigm straight. And when you think of it in that mode, you can begin slowly turning old world companies into thinking about a mobile first environment.
Yeah, I mean, we have to, and mobile first is one of those things that many people sort of. It's been around a while as a concept, but many people kind of implemented it as responsive design, which is resizing to some extent to fit mobile. That's not really quite mobile first, and I think there's almost a second mobile first 2.0. We'll call it. We coined it here first, right? So there's a 2.0 mobile first, which is. No, really, we really mean it this time in that we make it super easy to do.
Right.
And certainly in B2C, that's critically important. You can now, using something like an Apple Pay or Google Pay, you can check out faster on mobile than you can on desktop, simply because all of the details are already built into the phone, and it literally is that tap buy kind of experience. And just as Colleen was talking about, with a gas station kind of example, if you can take friction out of the process and make it really easy to buy, then people spend more money. Okay, so let's move on. How do you provide personal relevant service throughout the commerce process to build a compelling experience? Well, the personalization question, this is always a tricky one. How do we do personalization at scale? And maybe somebody wants to jump in and talk about, how do we do it so that it's not creepy? So who wants to go next? Corey, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I can do that, Charles. I may not be the one to speak to how to do it without being creepy, because we're not doing it at scale and really sophisticated at this time. And here's why. I think I mentioned we launched a new site just a little over a year ago, and our launch was really focused on core use cases, for those B2B buyers and some of the B2B back office folks that reside at our customer locations. And that core use case predominantly is the product experience. And what we mean by that is product search. And additionally, with product search comes content, and content is king, whether it's B2B, B2C. And then when you think about personalization, we're early, but I know I've used the word journey before, very similar journey with respect to personalization. At this time, it is more, think of basic self-service, not really true personalization, but certainly it is an aspiration for us, and personalization could mean many things. It could be role profile based. It could be enabling some of the key offerings, capabilities, data, reporting, and analytics we offer to our customers in a more personalized way. obviously upsell, cross-sell is also relevant to B2B. So we're still designing that roadmap at this time, but not sitting and waiting. I won't go into detail at this time, but we are doing some small test and learns to at least understand what works, what type of behavior and reactions we get out of the testing.
Yeah, you make a really, really good point, which is that personalization in B2B is just as relevant, but it's different, right? Because there are lots of opportunities, in particular, really around reporting, different levels in the organization, different parts of the hierarchy, and different ways that you can deliver a great experience. Great point. So let's switch to the B2C side if we can. So Colleen, do you want to jump in? I bet you've got a ton of data down at Albertsons, and you're all over it, right? So tell us what you do.
I am. So when we think about personalization, yes, we have a tremendous amount of data. Albertsons has Albertsons Safeway is one of our other big brands. We have a club card, so customers are used to giving us a little bit of information, and in return they get better prices. But we also figured out, that we can give them better deals. We can help make their experience easier. So, this started maybe 10 years ago when we were doing our proof of concept for our loyalty programs, and so I definitely would say that the personalization aspect, is in our blood. I guess as a side note first, I would say we're a grocery store. We see our customers every week, sometimes twice a week. The folks in the stores know each other. So I know we're talking digital here, but the culture within a grocery company is very personalized already. They know the names of customers. They know the types of things they buy. They know if they need help out to this car and stuff like that. When we became more digital because the technology allowed us to, we started looking at digital cues and really helping for that personalized shopping experience. Our Just For You program is one-to-one targeted marketing, which means, the digital offers that I receive are on things that I buy, things that I buy more often, or things that, might be coming up in my shopping list. And they might be on items that really never go on sale in the store because it's a small specialty item that can't afford to do a big marketing campaign, but they can give a personalized price, for a specific set of people who are interested in it. And so that type of personalization makes shopping easier for the customer. And I know that there's the question of, well, is it creepy? And that was one of the things we thought about, again, 10 years ago when we started thinking, if I give you a personalized offer, will that creep people out? We did a lot of focus groups, and the answer was no. They said, well, we know I'm giving you our club card, or typing in our identification number. We figured that you're taking that data and that you're doing something good with it to help me is what really actually drew customers closer to us. By far the remarks that we got were, I'm glad you're using my data to give me better offers. So I think the part that is not creepy about having so much data about somebody is if, one, they know they're giving you the data, and then two, that you're using it to help them. It's only creepy when you didn't think somebody knew something about you and all of a sudden, this ad pops up and you're like, oh my gosh, why is that there? But it's not creepy when I get a deal on the yogurt that I always buy and I like it the best.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, if somebody sells your data and all of a sudden they're using data in a way that you didn't expect, then you can absolutely guarantee that you have a big creep factor going on. So it's all about the context. If it's in the context of helping me, providing me a better experience, then it kind of makes sense. In fact, the way I like to think about this is that, great personalization should just feel completely natural. It should just feel like great service. And where you step over the line, it's probably because you're not actually really delivering great service. You're trying to sell too much. You're trying to be too aggressive and pushing the envelope. But if you always focus on delivering a great service to the individual, then chances are it'll be perceived well. Okay, great. Always love talking about creepiness. So let's move on. Number 6. So how has the increase in consumer expectations affected your commerce system? So we talked about lofty expectations earlier on. So how have we met lofty expectations? So Joel, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the whole theme of the day, would be consistent. I mean, right, the consumer is now the center of the universe, and whether that be a person buying groceries or T-shirts or a person buying medical supplies or software, the consumer is now demanding everything. And I think and that is, to me, in my opinion, what the internet has provided, right? It's moved all of the power into the consumer's hands and away from, say, an apparel or retail, the merchant's hands, where the merchant would dictate, or in B2B, the salesman who would hammer away and make calls. Now what digital commerce and what digital has provided is all the power has gone to the consumer. They're going to be able to engage you when they want, how they want, in all the methods that are their preferences. So I think what we have done is attempt to really understand that and harness that and introduce personalization and look at data, whether we're using a customer data platform, tying that into a data management platform so we're targeting them correctly. You look at all the tools at your hands, and that to me is what the customer has challenged the business to do, is cultivate the tools, build out the experiences to meet them in a way that's most appealing to them, to win their business and then ultimately win their loyalty. So I think what we have done and what we have attempted to try to do and continue and are still very early in the journey is to really understand everything that's needed about, asking the customer what they want and what they're interested in, rather than telling them this is what you need. And I think that's slowly beginning to take hold here, again, in a very traditional company where, again, the theory always was the sales guys will drive the business, and that's that. Now it's, hey, the consumer is actually going to drive our business, and we better figure out how to deal with them. And I think as we start building out our digital muscles, we're finding some success in that.
Yeah, and absolutely. There's also a ton of data that we can get from individual customers, even if we don't necessarily explicitly ask them.
Correct.
I always like to think that when we're thinking about personalization, we should be thinking about the current journey. It's a now in the moment problem, not necessarily so much of a historic problem. Because, for example, if I'm shopping for something for me, then I have a particular persona. But if my daughter's using my computer, or if I'm shopping for a gift for my wife at Christmas, all of a sudden, the persona of the person using the computer looks very different. So the in the moment stuff, it gives us incredible signals that we can begin to leverage, and the more that we do that in a way, we'll deliver a better expectation, a better experience. Ultimately, easier to do things that otherwise, we would struggle to do with. And nobody wants that. Everyone's too busy. They don't have time for that. Okay, so Jeff, do you want to pick up on the same theme?
Sure. This is an interesting question. Since the majority of our customer interactions are B2B, we're constantly working to find the right balance between taking advantage of learnings and user experiences in the B2C space, with kind of coupling that with the knowledge that we have about our customers and how they want to act or interact with us and our products. And candidly, this is an active area of debate for us internally. At the risk of bringing up those hospital buyers in the basement of a hospital, we have those kinds of users as well as independent retail operators that are using the websites. And one thing that was eye-opening for me when I joined McKesson a couple of years ago when visiting customers is that many of them don't even touch a mouse as a part of their process, right? It's all about speed and efficiency oftentimes. And some, frankly, here at McKesson believe we should take a more dramatic shift in our user experience more to a B2C kind of experience, and others disagree with that point of view. So we are certainly in the process of doing some of that test and learn kind of activities to find that right balance. But for us, at the end of the day, we have to design experiences that optimize those B2B interactions while we do our best to take advantage of B2C experience conventions wherever that makes sense. Because to the point, these are all still consumers, right? When they're not at work, they're buying things online through B2C websites, and they tend to have those same kinds of expectations. We're just trying to find the right balance amongst those things.
Well, that is fascinating. It brings me back to a comparison between WordPerfect back in the old days where people knew all the shortcuts and they were expert users and they could do things super fast, right? Versus the what won in the end, which is over the long period of time, that ultimately the mouse and the easier user interface reached a much broader population. Fascinating to see whether that parallel works its way out in your business as well, Jeff. And maybe you and Colleen should get together because you're going to have a similar kind of thing around, that shopping list and that repeat purchase kind of concept in the same way.
Sure, and we're seeing a number of those things, right? As if we look at the way things used to work, we certainly didn't used to have search features on our websites that included faceting and filtering and other things that first came to the foray in B2C experiences, and those are used heavily in our web properties. So I think there's a balance there, and I think it is going to continue to migrate that direction. I think the challenge for us is to figure out, to some of the comments that have been made before, how much do we drive that, and how much do we take the lead from our customers, or find a balance there as we try to think it through and ensure that we kind of deliver the best experience over time while also thinking about the right kind of innovations.
Well, absolutely, and if customers know the short code, for the product because they order it every week, then yeah, let's make it easy and quick for them to do that. Absolutely, I totally agree. Okay, so quick reminder to the audience, we've got some great questions coming in from the audience, so we're going to get to those after the next one. So if you haven't asked a question yet, do jump in. We'll try and get to you if we possibly can, given time. So let's think a little bit about organizations now, organizational ability. So how can you add agility to other parts of your business process, such as mobile experience, supply chain, business intelligence? Or what is it that we need to do to get our organizations thinking about agility proactively? How does that work? So I'm going to go around each of the panel on this one. So let's start with ladies first. Colleen, do you want to go first on this one?
I would love to. For us, I think it's really two things. The first one is having top-down leadership that is encouraging and understands how important this mobile experience, how important all of those things are, and it can be shown in a lot of different ways. I definitely would say that we've had we've had the mottos of, digital first, but then it didn't come with money or it didn't come with, any other type of support. So that doesn't really count. I think where it really shows is when you actually have leadership roles that are committed to agility. We recently just got an EVP and Chief Customer and Digital Officer. That's who I will be reporting into. She just started a couple of days ago. Previously, I was kind of reporting under a bigger umbrella of merchandising, EVP of merchandising and marketing, and so you get a little bit lost in there. So it's nice when you have an EVP who's really looking at, how can we be agile? How can we, transform, the business? The second piece is the table stakes, and that's the data. You have to have strong data in your organization because that's your building block. And it has to be easy to find, and you have to know how clean it is and how relevant it is. And I think, we talked about it earlier, how fast it gets to you so that you can use it in the customer experience. You need the oversight that it's, legally compliant, with CCPA, PII data, that you guard your data, you don't sell it, you don't misuse it. But the data piece, once those building blocks are in place, it makes it so much easier for other groups to also, build on what they're trying to do. If you're in a siloed organization and all the data's siloed and your supply chain, can't communicate with your marketing or the analysis to try to find something, you have to hit 5 different databases, people aren't going to do it. But once you have that integrated layer and you can get to that, then every part of your organization gets more agile.
Okay, top-down leadership, absolutely. So, Corey, maybe expand on that a little bit. How organizationally do we sort of create an environment where people are kind of feel safe effectively? Can you talk to that?
Yeah, I mean, first I'll echo what Colleen said, although I will add on, related to the top-down. I mean, certainly when you have leadership, C-suite or otherwise, driving, supporting, sometimes mandating, the path is certainly easier. It doesn't mean we don't try at times when that's not in existence, to influence, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. For us, and we painted this picture very early on when getting initial funding and all the way up through launch, and I would say now post-launch of the new site is, our e-commerce site, which is a tool used every day by all of our customers across the medical side of the care continuum. It's only as good as, and I know data's been touched on here, and with Colleen most recently, it's only as good as the data, whether it's the back-end source systems, our supply chain, other integrations. Otherwise, we're just exposing, and we do quite often, the challenges, the bad or wrong information or whatever it might be to our customer. And it's interesting, and internally we often get blamed by sales or others closer to the customer that it's our site, and that's just not the case. So, where I'm going with that is there's an absolute need, embedded within your question. You mentioned supply chain, that for us and our business as a distributor plus a manufacturer, that's critical. And fortunately, we do have a lot of work underway. I wouldn't say it's driven by the digital experience. I'd like to say that, but it is driven and rooted in the customer experience and the need to optimize our supply chain both for internal and external reasons. And so when you think about that, business processes, whether it's supply chain or otherwise, we're in a very complex environment, as Jeff knows very well, with some of our businesses being similar. Some business processes are very archaic, cumbersome, complex. We've done that to ourselves either as a company or as an industry. So kind of back to that point of exposing some of that to the customer, absolutely room for improvement for areas that we can control.
It's a great segue. Over to you, Jeff.
Yeah, sure. I can certainly relate to much of what Corey is saying there, and also echo the top-down comments from Colleen. But if I think about a couple of things at McKesson that I think are relevant here, one is trying to better link up kind of our agility models on the IT side of things with our business processes, and one of the key ones is our funding mechanisms. This has been an issue at McKesson. It's been an issue at prior companies where I worked, where we like to do annual budgeting and we like to understand kind of what it's going to cost to deliver the totality of a solution, but we don't tend to, think about that in an agile mindset. So that's one of the key things that we're trying to work through at this point is actually getting more flexible with our funding mechanisms so that as we work more agilely with our IT partners, we can have funding mechanisms that support and enable that more effectively. Another thing that we're doing is really trying to change our mindset from one of working on projects to working on products. And by that, I mean, thinking about even functional areas and services as products and employing good product management discipline to them to ensure we understand, the users or customers of those more broadly defined products and actively managing a roadmap to constantly evolve those products and doing our best to measure progress against the right set of KPIs for each of those. Again, I'll use the term products, but we're trying to define that more broadly, even into some of our more internal functional areas, as well as some of the services that we provide. And those things are linked together. Again, if we're going to be agile in how we think about that development, we've got to be agile in how we think about funding those activities and be willing to adjust as we get into it and learn from customers and what they're adopting and what they're not adopting.
Cool. And definitely last but not least, so Joel,
yeah,
you.
no problem. I think everyone really hit it. So I think the one thing that we try focusing on, and one thing I don't really think we've discussed is taking the data and taking the insights for justification so you eliminate fear. Because I doubt that I would be the only one who'd say one of the biggest challenges that you go in architecting an agile and digital environment is the fear of change and the rapidness that change is going to happen and getting everybody on board with that. So what we try to do is really garner the data and the insights to really just have the air cover to make sure everyone understands that the bets that we're making are very soundly rationalized based on the data that we have. And I think that allows the building of the culture to do test and learn, to do agile, to move into digital in places where, people never would have thought it would have been, right? I mean, would have never imagined buying payroll services online, right? 15 years ago, no one would have thought about buying groceries online or going to the gas station using loyalty cards. So I think it's the idea of taking the data to really build your case. And Jeff just mentioned about getting the financing and being able to move rapidly between justifications of that. That's the key. Use the data to figure those things out, and then it all takes care of itself.
Very cool. Well, thank you. Some great thoughts there. Really, really valuable. So let me throw it back to Emily. Emily, can we do a few questions from the audience?
Hi, guys. Yes, thank you to our wonderful panelists and Charles for doing a great job moderating. We're now going to review some of the questions that were submitted by the audience during the discussion. So one really great one that just came in was, I've read that this Black Friday has broken e-commerce sales records in the U.S. In what ways, if any, do you tailor your e-commerce strategies for shopping holidays in an attempt to stay agile?
So I can speak to that one. I can speak to that one from a long career though I'm a B2B guy now, a long career in retail and B2C. I think what you do is as each year passes by and the more shopping holidays that come around, obviously this is a huge one, you try to take all the data you can garner to maximize your punch. So whether that is understanding your customer is going to research and purchase online but pick up in store, what promotions do you want to do to engender and build on that behavior? On the back end, do you have all the servers you need to make sure that your website stays up? So I think what you do is you build yourself in an agile way, because now more than ever you have personalization coming at you, and these big holidays give you just an amazing opportunity to pulse in personalized offers that can drive the business. And you take the data, you mine the data, you build your cohorts, and then you just plan on the days that are going to hum, and you have everybody ready to go. And I think it's become more common and easier in B2C. I think B2B is several years behind, but we'll get there. But these are big marquee events that the data tells you what's going to happen, and they almost become self-fulfilling prophecies if you use your data correctly. And it's a matter of taking that data and then making sure your websites are honed and ready to ride, and stripped down of any weight that would hold them back, because speed kills and or the lack thereof in digital. And I think those are the ways that you start planning ahead, as you look at your experience in the past and you just build upon it as you learn more and more about your customer.
I totally agree. And the website staying up is definitely a must. I hadn't really thought about it, in my previous jobs, but once I came into retail, and there'd be all these moratorium times when we couldn't put any changes, into the architecture, and I was like, oh, it's so frustrating. I can't get anything done. And then it was, when people are doing, in grocery, it's Black Friday. It's not really a huge one for us, but Thanksgiving and different camping events and back to school. There's certain times when People really come in hard and fast for what they need, and we make sure everything else is stable. Building in that core stability into your infrastructure is what allows you to take that big flux of what a Black Friday might be, or an Easter shopping week might be, or a game day event might be. And you don't really, sometimes you don't know until it's tested, depending on how your systems are, because you just don't know where that weak link is. So you just have to test in that backspace.
Thank you, guys. So we're going to move on to the next question, which is, what are the most important pieces of data you can leverage for increasing agility and boosting your e-commerce strategy?
Well, this is Jeff, and unfortunately, this will probably be a bit of a generic or maybe a general answer, but for us, it very often comes down to various measures of customer satisfaction and engagement, right? We can get some of that through, web analytics and other tools where we can get some quantitative data around engagement and how customers are taking advantage of the properties. And then we also do quite a bit of various forms of surveying, as much as we can, but we also, one of the benefits, I guess, of a B2B environment is, at least on the hospital side of our business, it's a much more discrete number of customers, right? We can more directly reach out and talk to customers and get some qualitative information as well. But oftentimes, at the end of the day, again, it still comes down to customer satisfaction and how or how not are they engaging with the various capabilities that you've got within your digital properties.
I'd echo that, because the reality is that, we don't make a profit with the first sale. And, all of the cost of acquisition are so high that if all that's amortized against only a single purchase from an individual customer, whether it B2B or B2C, even more so in B2B, then it really doesn't work economically. It doesn't drive profitability. So therefore, really understanding the quality of the experience is so important. And, you talked about surveying and understanding the experience itself. I believe that there's a whole area here of what I call the last mile, from the point that the order is taken on the website all the way through to, the goods being received. Are they delivered on time? Is the order correct? Is the pick, pack, and ship correct? Is the packaging correct? Is the packaging eco or not excessive? Is it recyclable? Through to, does the product do what it said it did? Is the product description correct? Through to, how easy is it to return if it's not suitable, doesn't fit in some form? All of those things ultimately are the measures that then determine whether or not that's a great experience. And I'm defining experience not as being the pretty bit on the website, but the complete end-to-end journey, which then means that, yes, this was good, and yes, I trust you as a company, and yes, I'll buy from you again.
I would love to be able to, be measuring things just on customer satisfaction. We do get, satisfied customers calling into our call center, but I think one of the best litmus tests that I use is from our call center. They receive calls all the time on any type of experience, whether it's digital, in store, questions on promotions, whatever. And we categorize that information. And again, this data is where it comes to play. It helps me figure out, do I have a problem somewhere that I need to fix? Or, is there a gap in the experience that, is something that we should address first? Early on, there was something that was a little more, rough in our registration process, and the call center was getting a ton of calls. A very high proportion, of these calls were registration questions. And once we fixed that problem, those calls went away. Something else came in, and it's only directional. Not everybody who has a problem calls. Not every type of problem is addressed. But I would say that's the type of data that it kind of helps, because it's both qualitative and quantitative, to address what else we want to do in our strategy.
Hey, Charles, one comment I just want to echo. I was really glad to hear you highlight that end-to-end journey because it is critically important. It doesn't matter what business you're in, B2B, B2C, certainly. And for us, we have felt that pain. I know I've mentioned we launched the new site a little over a year ago, and shortly after doing that, moving customers over and retiring the 2 legacy sites, there were as a large distributor, we have mispicks or fulfillment issues or some other challenge, and often because they started using a new e-commerce site, it was, hey, that new site caused this. Well, it didn't. There is that full end-to-end journey from pre-order through post-order, and often we got the blame early on for some of those issues directly from customers, not just our internal folks or salespeople. So I think having the organization, not to revisit a previous question, but top down and really embedded, culture driven, of having a view of that end-to-end journey and prioritizing those key touch points is important.
Great. Thank you, guys. So it looks like we have time for just one more question. So to wrap up our discussion, what are your e-commerce predictions for 2020?
Shall I go first? I'll break the ice on this one, give everyone time to think. So predictions are always tricky, but we ran some consumer survey just recently, and for the first time since we've been running this, more than 50% of consumers said that they felt that environmental concerns and sustainability would influence their holiday shopping for the first time. Or for the first time, more than 50%. And I mean, to me, that's a bit of a sea change, really. And e-commerce has to wake up to this, because if on a given day you've got 20 million people complaining their governments are not doing enough about environmental things and all of this negative publicity which is hitting the fan all the time, then we as e-commerce teams really do have to think about how we can do a better job and provide customers with options, so that at least we make it visible to them what their choices are. So for example, yes, maybe I want it next day, but if there's an environmental cost to that, then maybe consolidating shipments together, or cheaper or more efficient ways, or different ways of handling orders so that they come from different distribution centers which are more efficient. All those sorts of things become something that we potentially need to expose to consumers, so that they see that, one, that we care as businesses, but also that we're giving them the choices to then make sustainable decisions in their own right. We also need to look at packaging, both in terms of the delivery packaging that's given, make sure it's recyclable and compostable, but also product packaging as well, which is a whole gnarly area if you start looking at the amount of plastics and some of those sorts of things. But there's whenever you see a sea change in consumer attitudes, and it's been really quite rapid on the environmental side, we do have to take notice.
Yeah, I think that's true, Charles. And this is Jeff. I think a couple of us work in the highly regulated healthcare industry. I know Colleen works in the food industry, certainly with its share of regulations as well. So I think the need to be agile is going to be enhanced by, I think, the way that government regulations and other external factors are going to continue to introduce themselves into our work. Some things are within our control and some things are not. But I think even those kinds of external factors are going to continue to put pressure on all of us, whether it's B2C or B2B, to ensure that we do have agile capabilities in place to be able to react both to customer needs, but also to some of these more external factors that are going to come flying at us at times.
This is Colleen. Yeah, I totally agree. For us, we live and die by personalization, but I'm really curious how the CCPA and privacy laws are going to impact us. We're not international companies, so we really hadn't run into too much of this yet, but now the U.S. is turning a lot more into, privacy on your data. Who owns the data? Does the customer own the data, or does the company own the data? Once the company does an analysis on your data, do you still own that as a customer, or does the company own it? And so all of those debates are raging, and I'm curious, and concerned. If customers say, you know what, I don't care about, personalization anymore. I don't want to share your data with me, or I don't want to share my data with you, then I can't give them personalized experience. And then I'm going to have to use different cues, and then I don't know if the laws will change and say, you can't use that cue either. So I think that will be an interesting space that will come out in 2020. I unfortunately cannot predict what direction it will go. I would like to, but I don't know.
I think, Colleen, it's only going one way, actually. Privacy is getting tougher.
So this is where the context aspect comes in. I'm really, really super hoping, like, people are saying, yeah, the grocery aspect, you can have my data there because you give me better deals. But at some point, you're right. Maybe they're like, I don't care about the deals. I just want to be off the grid or something.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I want to thank our lovely panelists and Charles for providing that thought leadership presentation. Thank you all for joining again, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Thanks. Bye.